It's time we check in with 4th District Congressman Jim Himes of Greenwich. Good morning, Congressman. Welcome. How are you doing today?
Good morning, Tony. Doing well. Beautiful day today.
It is, and hopefully, well, tomorrow's not supposed to be too nice, but I think we'll salvage Sunday and Monday for the weekend, Memorial Day weekend. Tell us, recap your week if you could. You in Washington this past week?
Well, this week we were in Washington the previous week. Friday we passed the HEROES Act, which is sort of the latest installment in aid and emergency rescue funds for the COVID-19 crisis, and was home in Connecticut this week. Expect to be back in Washington next week, Tony, to actually, unlike the HEROES Act, which has not been taken up by the Senate, I actually think we're going to get something pretty important done, which is a modification to the Paycheck Protection Program loan. This is the loan program that has the forgivable loans that, so long as 75% of those loans are spent on keeping payroll and paying employees. I have heard over time a lot of concern about some of the lack of flexibility in that program. For example, the notion that the money has to be used in an 8-week period. There is a bill that we will be voting on that I actually think is going to become law that will create a lot more flexibility around that program. So, for example, instead of having to spend those monies associated with the Paycheck Protection Program loan over 8 weeks, you could spend it over a much longer period of time. That'll make the program, which proved very popular. We had a lot of those loans in southwestern Connecticut, hopefully make them a lot more usable, a lot more helpful to people.
All right. And you think that this is something that both the House and Senate would be amenable to pass?
I do. I heard yesterday that the Senate may actually get it done this week, and if that were true, we get it done next week, there's a chance it could become law next week.
Now, as far as the HEROES Act is concerned, you're saying that's just sitting in the Senate and not likely to pass?
Well, it never was, to be very frank, in the sense that it was it originated in the House. It was largely a Democratic set of ideas, and so I didn't expect that Mitch McConnell would just say, "Hey, let's vote on this thing and get it done." What I was hoping for was that he would do his counter proposal. In other words, the need out there is still very severe. We know that to be the case. Obviously, on the medical side, we're approaching 100,000 deaths in the country, and on the unemployment side, we're almost at 40 million Americans unemployed, including close to 300,000 here in the state of Connecticut. So my hope was that it was a start of a negotiation. And okay, it's a democratically oriented bill, so you tell us what you want. Sadly, Mitch McConnell's response was more, I think he said, let's take a pause. I disagree with that. Again, I'm open-minded to what he might say he might want in the next bill, but I do think it's urgent that we continue to pump aid into the economy, whether it's our towns, our cities, or individuals. People are really feeling the squeeze right now. But anyway, we'll keep pushing on that point.
All right, now about the pause, I mean, this is publicly anyway, the idea is, well, let's see how the other stimulus works before we just jump in and throw more money out there. Your reaction to that, obviously you disagree with that. Why is that?
Well, I don't disagree with that in all areas. We've made an immense amount of money available for testing, for example, and I think we do need to see how a testing system gets built. On the other hand, states and municipalities have really gotten no aid in this whole crisis. And we've talked about this before, Tony. This means the town of Greenwich, it means the town of Stamford, it means the state of Connecticut, and it really means are these entities going to need to start firing people? Teachers, nurses, doctors, first responders, police officers, firefighters. If you listen to the governor, for obvious reasons, the revenue at every level has gone way down. Sales taxes have gone way down. Lots of people aren't in a position to pay their property taxes. And so very soon, and we saw this, there was obviously that whole controversy in the town of Greenwich where the BET decided to sort of unilaterally and in an anticipatory fashion cut pretty substantially the education budget. So we've seen it right here in Greenwich. And so in that area, aid to municipalities and states, nothing has been done. We're at the point now, I think, where that $1,200 payment to a lot of individuals has probably been largely used up. So again, I'm not saying that the Senate needs to do everything that I want it to do. I'm just saying that we're not at a point yet across the board where we should just do nothing. There's too much economic pain out there for that to be true.
All right, and then finally, how do you think Connecticut is handling things in terms of the reopening? We were the last state in the country the other day to reopen.
Yeah. Well, so I think this is the honest answer to your question, Tony, is that I don't know, and quite honestly, I don't think anybody knows.
Wait 2 weeks, right?
Well, yeah. Let's wait a week or two to see. I mean, one of the interesting things is that you're absolutely right. Some states have gone pretty aggressively on the opening. Other states have gone more cautiously. None of us have ever lived through something like this before, so I'm not sure anybody knows the answer. But I do think that in a week or two we're gonna have some data, for better or for worse, from different states. And it strikes me that Governor Lamont has been prudent. I'm glad to see that restaurants are opening for outdoor services. I'm glad to see that the beaches and parks are beginning to open up in a more meaningful way. But we do need to be careful here. Again, I made this point the other day. This week we crossed 90,000 deaths in this country. That's more. I mean, to put that into context for people, that's more people than we lost in the Vietnam War and the Korean War combined. Think about that. 3 months ago, none of us had ever heard of this virus, and now we've lost more Americans than we lost in those two major wars of our lifetimes. And so I do think it's important to be careful and prudent as we do this, understanding, of course, the pressure that people feel to get back to work. But I think 2 weeks from now, Tony, since different states have approached this in a different way, we're going to have a much better sense of how far you can push the envelope without actually, making the health crisis worse.
All right, Congressman, thanks very much for your time. Have a great Memorial Day weekend, and we'll talk next week. Thank you.
Thank you.